the True Crime Page podcast, featuring Scott Williams Collins.
Hello and welcome to the True Crime Page podcast. I'm your host Scott Williams Collier. Today, guys, we've got an interview with Ryan DALY. Now, Ryan runs the Facebook group Let's Get Justice for Lisa Jane Hession and her mum Christine. And he set the group up to raise awareness of Lisa's case. Welcome onto the show, Ryan.
Hiya, you alright?
I'm very good, thank you. Now, before we start, I think it's always good to just ask a few questions about you and find a little bit more about yourself. So first and foremost, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name's Ryan DALY and I'm from Leigh, and I've been raising awareness regarding the Lisa Hession case since November 2016.
Excellent. Now, where did you first come up with the motivation and the idea to set up the Facebook group for Lisa and her mum? And what are your hopes to achieve from it through the group?
Well, I wasn't actually born when the murder happened in 1984. I was only born in 1990, so about 5.5 years later. However, I was well aware of the case from being about 9 or 10. Obviously, I'm from Leigh, and I am originally from that same estate where the murder happened. And I run the Raising Awareness campaign with Andrew Ashcroft, and Andrew was friends with Lisa Hession and actually grew up with her and knew her well, where obviously I didn't know Lisa, but I knew of the case for many years. Anyway, the main reason I started Raising Awareness in 2016 was when I heard about the death of Lisa's mum, Christine Hession, and it was in the May of 2016 that I found out. It was actually from one of my friends, one of my oldest friends who's lived on that estate all her life, and she had actually informed me Christine had died. So in 2016, I thought more awareness needed to be done regarding the unsolved murder of Lisa Hession. So at that point in 2016, I emailed the papers regarding the case, and this is how I got talking to Neil Keeling. And Neil covered the murder in 1984 when he was a young journalist, and it's a case he's covered and he's never forgot. Still to this day, he still does articles regarding the case and has done several times over the recent years. Neil's also very passionate for the case to be solved finally, like me and Andrew and many people from Leigh. Originally, I first posted the information about the case on the 3rd of November 2016 onto Leigh Life forums, and basically what I did was I just put pictures of the case and details and the police phone number about onto the site of Leigh Life forums, and I was actually anonymous for the first 12 months or so. And at that point in 2016, it was approaching the 32nd anniversary since the murder. And at the time, I remember thinking back then, hopefully now someone is going to speak up and name the killer of Lisa Hession, especially with her mum passing away. But unfortunately, no one did. I won't lie, I was very wary about putting the original post, which what I created on in 2016 onto Facebook. One, because it was a very sensitive subject, and two, out of respect for Lisa Hession's family. And obviously at that point, it wasn't long since the passing of Christine Hession. So I uploaded the post in 2016, and a local Leigh bloke, Peter Hampson, shared the original post from Leigh Life Forums onto Facebook in the November of 2016. At that time, I didn't honestly think note of it. I was just doing a good deed and trying to raise awareness about the case, and now I'm still raising awareness about the case nearly 5 years later. But one of the main reasons I created and uploaded a second post a year later in November 2017 was due to the BBC acting Crime Watch from its prime time slot that same year. And at the time, I thought it was a foolish decision made from the BBC, because I remember thinking, how the hell a historical case like Lisa Hession is going to get solved if obviously Crime Watch is not on. So the show solved so many historical cases and kept all cases in the media and appealed to the nation, making sure people didn't forget. So anyway, after the second post was done, then I uploaded it onto Leigh forums again, and this time Andrea shared it, and it went onto Facebook again, and it got loads of shares. And me and Andrea have actually known each other for over 10 years. So I told Andrea at the time I was the person who started raising awareness about the case. And from November 2017, we both began working with each other and together as a team, and we still do now, and continue to raise awareness about the murder. And then obviously the Facebook group for the case created in about the November time of 2017, and we had a massive response from the people of Leigh and the general public. Our aim is to hopefully help catch the person responsible and to get justice for Leigh Hession and her family and friends. I mean, whether the culprit is dead or alive, but whoever it is, it's very likely it could probably still be alive. Either or, this case needs solving. In 2004, when I was 14, I actually covered the Leigh Hession case for a school project for my citizenship lesson whilst I was in third year at high school. So I went to Leigh Library and I printed off all the old newspaper articles regarding the case. And weirdly enough, a month later, the case had been reopened and it was in our local papers and back in the media due to it being 20 years since the murder. Then obviously in February 2005, the case was on BBC's Crime Watch. Personally, going back to when I watched the case being featured on the show, Crime Watch that is, I thought it was very poor and it was very brief. And if I remember rightly, it was like the last case to feature on the episode. I was actually shocked. It was the first time the case had ever been on Crime Watch, like ever featured on it. And I was actually shocked it was never featured, like the case or the reconstruction was never featured in the 80s, which really shocked me because I would have thought it would have been, but it wasn't. It was only in 2005, first time it was ever on the show. But I actually do remember Lisa's mum, Christine, when she lived on the estate, and I used to really feel sorry for her, especially with her living right corner from the murder scene and for all them years and never getting closure for her own daughter's murder. I mean, I lived on Rugby Road from being born in 1990 up to I was about 3 or 4. And then obviously me and my family moved off and we lived in other parts of Leigh, but I do still have friends and family who live on that estate now. And in regards to raising awareness about the case, my only regret is that I didn't start raising awareness about this like years ago. I wish now, if I had my time again, I would have started raising awareness about it in like 2009 or 2014 when it was the 25th and 30th anniversary.
Now, I know you've got an interesting story regarding one of your aunties. Apparently, she had a very close call the night Lisa was murdered. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Ryan?
Oh, yeah, that's true, actually. Well, the Lisa Hession case is actually quite close to one for me and my own family. In the 1980s, my auntie, my mum's middle sister, actually lived on Rugby Road like my own mother did at the time. And he wrote on the night of the murder, my auntie had actually been down the same back roughly 15 minutes before the police think the murder happened. So my auntie had rushed to Oak Street shop to go and get some cigs before the shop shut. I think she said you shut about 10:15 at night, from what I remember she said. So she's left by her back gate because it was the quickest route and the shortcut to the shop because it flips to that round corner. So my auntie ran down the back and she never seen out. She didn't see anyone or anything. She just missed the murder of Lisa and seen the culprit by minutes. And I remember my nan telling me years back, at the time it did play on my auntie's mind when it happened in the 80s because if she would have gone out that bit later, my auntie, she probably could have stopped that from happening because it was literally right next to her house. But my auntie was very lucky to escape danger because only a few hours later, Lisa Hession's body was found 2 doors from where my auntie used to live. But another thing I remember was what my mum was telling me about what it was actually like living on the estate and on Rugby Road when the murder happened in 1984. At the time, my mum was 17 and she'd just given birth to my elder sister 2 months before. So in the November of 84, my mum had got an house on Rugby Road near my auntie, which is obviously her sister. And at the time, my mum wasn't sleeping at the house due to complications with the heating. Obviously, my sister was only 2 months old, so the house was freezing. Also, my mum said that December of 84 was a very cold winter. So my mum and my sister were sleeping at my nan's, which was in the same area of Leigh, but on a different council estate near Rugby Road, but like only 2 minutes away. So when I was 14 and they reopened it, I remember my mum describing to me about the morning after Lisa Hession's murder on the Sunday. And my mum and my nan was walking to her old house on Rugby Road, and there was actually decorating the house. So my mum's pushing my sister in pram, and my nan's with her. They both they were coming down Buck Street, and they cut through to an estate, and then they were gobsmacked when they've seen all these police. So they've got to top of Newlands Road, and they're wondering like, what's going on? Why are all these police here? So police had cornered off the back, and my mum's exact words, like going back years ago when she told me this, was like she'd never seen as many police in her life. It was like something out of a film and surreal. And my mum was shocked when she heard what had happened, and someone could do something so horrific on your own doorstep. Because like my mum was 17, she weren't that much older than Lisa Hession. I mean, my mum didn't know Lisa Hession personally, like, but years later, my mum said it was scary. Sorry, years later, my nan said to me like how scary it was that my nan's own daughter, meaning my auntie, was down them same backs before the murder happened. It's scary to think even after Lisa's murder, my mum, when we lived on the estate, would return home from a night out round Leigh, sometimes on her own, and she'd pass them backs like in the 80s and like the early 90s when we lived there. And I remember as well, my eldest cousin, she's about 41 now, and she actually remembers the murder happening, and it was about 16 years back. She told me like how she was 5 at the time, and she remembers being in the backs on the Sunday morning, and my cousin had gone out to play in the back, which was something she always did as a kid, and something like what wasn't out of the ordinary for her. So she'd done this many times before, so she'd gone out of the back gate to play in the backs, and this policewoman's explained to my cousin like she couldn't play in the backs. So my cousin's like, well, why? So she said like they found a body of a young lady the night before, so the policewoman actually had to take my cousin back home and said to my auntie like she can't play in backs because like we're investigating basically. But it's scary to think like my own cousin's own mother had been in them same backs like minutes before the murder, and my auntie were really lucky for escape danger, really.
Now, it's been covered in the press over the years that there were several other sexually motivated attacks that took place in the same area in the same time period of Lisa's murder. Many believe, and I'm one of these people that believe this as well, that it is the same person that attacked Lisa. But there are some people that believe that it could possibly be a red herring. What are your thoughts on that, Ryan?
No, absolutely not. I don't think for 1 minute that E-Fit man who attacked them women prior to Lisa Hession's murder is the same man who killed Lisa Hession. Me and Andrea both agreed on this, and we think it's a red herring, and it's been a massive distraction to the case. I mean, many people also think the same, that the E-Fit was a massive distraction in the original investigation, especially some people who lived on the estate back then and still live there now. And these are people who I know personally who are obviously older than me, and they share the same opinion as me and Andrea. My opinion, and Andrea's is as well, that back in there, police had just assumed and put 2 and 2 together and got 5 type of things and assumed the attacks prior to Lisa's murder are linked to the murder like done by the same person. I personally don't think the fit bloke, the jogger should I say, is Lisa's killer. Besides, if the fit man was local and from Leigh, I would have thought one of the women attacked would have recognised him by now. I mean, Leigh's a very small town, and like everyone more or less knows everyone. And I think if the attacker was the killer, he would have been caught years ago. Me and Andrea, like in regards to that, me and Andrea don't always go off the fit picture either. But I can honestly say, in nearly 5 years of raising awareness about the case, probably only on 2 or 3 occasions, someone's actually got in touch with us via the group and passed an information to us and said, such a body looks like the EFIT picture. And we have still passed it on to cold case. But the majority of folk who give us information, who have done over years, don't even go off the EFIT of the suspect either. Like many people, me and Andrea think Lisa's killer was someone who knew her well, defo not that man on that EFIT picture. Like I said, I think it was a massive distraction to the case and a red herring. I don't think the killer's someone who's a known criminal or someone who's been charged with a crime at all. I mean, if it were, it would have been solved by now due to DNA. I think it's someone, a person, well, a man should I say, who people wouldn't expect, someone who comes across as a normal bloke, possibly with a family of his own and a decent job. I mean, for all we know, the killer could look completely different from that man, and that EFIT picture, the killer could, for all we know, have a different hair colour like on that EFIT photo. he's got dark hair. For all we know, the killer could have had blonde hair, for example. But I also read that the psychic Jimmy Walker did actually approach the police in the 80s with information, but the police didn't take him on because the police, unfortunately, don't take psychics or mediums on when they try to help solve a case. But apparently his information, from what I read in this book, was quite vital, what he thought anyway, and the police just dismissed it. The police don't take psychics on in this country, but if you look at in America, the police use psychics on a regular basis, and they've actually solved cases.
Do you believe that the offender is local, and do you believe that he has been protected?
Yeah, I definitely think the killer is from Leigh. For a long time, I was under the assumption, especially when I was younger, could the killer be from the estate where it happened, like the Rugby Road estate, or lived in streets nearby? So basically like a neighbour. But no, I definitely don't think he is. I think it would be too obvious. I mean, it might sound a bit of a contradiction from the original podcast, what me and Andrew took part in December last year, but I actually don't think so now. When I think about it, again, if he lived on another state at the time, I think the police would have caught him at the time or years later, because I do know from what I've heard, they've DNA tested local people who live on another state, like local men, should I say. But for example, it's possible he would have had injuries like scratches and bruises and marks, and it's likely he never even lived on another state at all, or never did at the time. But I definitely think it's someone from Leigh, probably still in Leigh area now. But that estate, I will say, is very open. And from Newlands Road, there's fields, and from the back, there's shortcuts, and there's a way of leaving that estate at night without being seen. I mean, it's quite interesting because my mum actually has a video, well, we did have a video, that my dad filmed in 1988 of Leigh. And on that video, it shows what King Street looked like before the redevelopment that took place in the early 90s. So you can see like the old shops and the old bus station before the new bus station and the new road, what now leads you to Tesco's, what it was like, what that area Leigh was like before it was built. And also, on the video, it shows how the estate, how the Rugby Road estate, how it looked before redevelopment. So, for instance, you see Newlands Road, how it looked in 1988 before the new houses, what are there now, which is Selvidge Close, what was built. It shows what Newlands Road looked like when there were fields originally there, which I do remember it looking like that. So judging from the video, like what we've got in 1988, and comparing it to how I remember the estate as far back as 94, 95, when I was 4, 5 years old, before they did redevelopment on it, it doesn't look any different from how I remember it in the 90s compared to what it looked like in the 80s. So how the estate used to look, there's a lot of ways from the crime scene that the killer could have escaped without being seen at night. So like I mentioned before, there used to be fields on Newlands Road across from them backs, and if you went over them fields, you could get onto St Helens Road, which is the main road in Leigh. And also there used to be the two pubs, what are no longer there now on the estate, the Brooklands and the Pennington. They were both demolished in the 90s and early 2000s, and now they have new houses on them, this site. So next to where the Brooklands used to be, on Pennington Road, there used to be a little kid park, and then there's the back field off Pennington Road, which is still there now. And basically, if you walk from Newlands Road from where them backs are, and literally it takes you to the bottom of Newlands Road, then you go on to Pennington Road. Then if you walk down off Pennington Road, there's a path, and there's fields at back of Pennington Road, and them fields lead you to other areas of Leigh. So from them fields, you can be led to places like Bedford, Bucksbridge, and what we call in Leigh the posh part of Leigh, like the Landside area, like Chestnut Drive, Ann Lane, Landside, etc. So who's to say the killer is not from one of them parts of Leigh? Also, from leaving them fields, it's not really a short journey to Canal, really. You can get to Canal within a few minutes. So that the killer could have quite easily used them fields and the Canal, especially in the dark night as well. I mean, a way of escaping out of sight, out of mind, and he's probably gone unnoticed. But I definitely think he was, or still is, close by to that area of Leigh. If it's not, I don't like one of them areas what I've just mentioned before, like Bucksbridge, Bedford, Pennington type of thing. But I think the killer has been shielded definitely from the very early stages, and more than likely for a number of years. Maybe his dad or his mum or his brother or a sibling I've shielded him as well. The killer has probably had a false alibi from a close family from the very start, and it's been a very closely guarded secret what has stayed within the family. It may be that he didn't intend to kill Lisa, but it's tragically gone wrong. Him or anyone else who knows he is the culprit should have spoke up back in the day to save Lisa Hession's family from suffering without the knowledge of knowing who is responsible for this murder. But but I think if they know anything, they should speak up now and come forward, because this has gone on too long. It's been 36 years, and no one's family should have to suffer without getting closure for the murder of their own relative. And I just think it's wrong, and it annoys me more than anything, because obviously I'm from Leigh and I've lived in Leigh all my life. I know I worked for when it happened, but it's like it's never been solved, and I just think it's wrong. I really do think it's wrong. But I think the theory of him being protected, that would make perfect sense, because he's never been caught after 36 years. Well, hasn't been caught yet, but one day the net will close in on him, and I don't think, and he's probably not dead either.
Now, DNA testing has become a massive tool in solving crimes today. We know a partial DNA profile was retrieved from Lisa. What are your thoughts and hopes with that piece of evidence, Ryan?
Well, me and Andrea hope that the killer will be caught eventually from DNA. And the police, like you said, have partial DNA of the killer. So either he will commit another crime, like something minor, like a driving offence, that will hopefully be his downfall, but he is hoping he gets caught. Or even a blood relative of his gets arrested and their DNA will match. Like, familiar DNA these days is brilliant. Like, it's a brilliant thing these days. Like, if you look at examples of historical cases in more recent years that have been being unsolved for over 30 years, like if you look at them, like these particular cases where they've caught the person through the culprit family member being charged with a separate crime, like, and familiar DNA has been the tool, like, what's helped identify who the culprit is. But if you look at cases like Melanie Road and Colette Aaron, they're typical examples of like how familiar DNA has helped capture a murderer who's gone unsolved who's gone uncaught, for over 30 years, and the case has finally been caught after over 30 years. But hopefully, Lisa Hession's case will be the next one to be solved. I hope, fingers crossed.
Now, following on with the subject of DNA profiling, I know over in America they've had huge success in solving cold cases using the online genome websites. Now, to the best of my knowledge, I don't believe we're doing that over here in the UK. Why? I don't know. If anybody knows anything different after listening to this, please feel free to correct me. But for me, it's a massive, massive tool in solving unsolved crimes, and I don't understand why the UK police don't seem to be using it. What are your thoughts on that, Ryan?
Well, I completely agree with you, Scott. I think GEDmatch, if that's what it's called, isn't it, GEDmatch, should be used in this country. I completely agree with you on that. I mean, it's been successful in the USA, and it's brilliant how they can build like a DNA profile of an offender through building a family tree through the criminal's blood, basically. So they can like work out who the blood relative is. I did watch the series about how they caught the Golden State Killer in the USA through GEDmatch, and that case had been unsolved for over 30 years. I mean, if GEDmatch were used in this country, then a lot of unsolved crimes could easily be solved. Like, for example, the Lisa Hession case, that could quite easily be solved with using GEDmatch. I think so, personally. But I hope the use of GEDmatch begins to be used in this country, because I do think they should start using it.
Now, finally, what's your opinion on what's going to happen in the future in the investigation into Lisa's murder?
Well, I think it's more likely the killer still lives in Leigh, in the district of Leigh, or even outside of Leigh. Like, I definitely do still think he's still local. I do hope, and I do think one day we'll be caught, at least found out with his DNA being on system. I mean, you can't get away with anything these days if your DNA is on system. And me personally, I think it's only a matter of time before the person is caught. I mean, me and Andrea both have this gut feeling that there will be a bit of breakthrough and this case will be solved. I also think it's sad that it's come to the police having to offer a 50 grand reward for information about the killer when in like a small town like Leigh. Like I said, it could only be like the killer's family only know, like, and literally like only within that family they know it's him what's done it. But in regards to the money, me and Andrea have no interest whatsoever with the money. We started raising awareness. Well, I know I did, and so did Andrea. We started raising awareness about the case before the reward money was offered, and also we both think it's wrong how money has to be offered to solve an unsolved murder of a child. I mean, when the reward money was offered, one thing what did annoy me was the amount of folk who had kept quiet for years, and I'm not knocking people here, but about the suspicions, and then when that money was offered, and we'd not long since created the group, and literally when that money was offered, like late 2017, early 2018, people was willing to give information to both me and Andrea, and like people was inboxes and stuff. And personally, I wouldn't want it because it's blood money. And if say something were to happen like in recent times, like a case like Lisa's were to happen now, and I had my suspicions about someone, I personally wouldn't want like 50 grand to name someone. I'd do it like to do the right thing basically. If I name someone, personally, I wouldn't want it. It's blood money. And the general public shouldn't have to be bribed to speak up about the unsolved murder of a child. Personally, I think if you know something or suspect someone, you shouldn't have to be offered money. But I'm not knocking the cold case for offering the reward money, but I was surprised how no one named the killer sooner with the reward money being offered in 2017. But I will say there will come a day when the list of suspects that the police have will eventually narrow down, and there'll be no one left on that list but the person responsible for the murder of Leigh Hession. And if the culprit had anything about him, if he's still alive, that is, he'd do the decent thing and hand himself in, rather than let Leigh Hession's family and a friend suffer any more years without knowing who is responsible for this murder. Same can be said for anyone who has shielded the killer. They need to do the decent thing and come forward. I mean, it's still a big thing in the town of Leigh, and like Andrea said in the podcast, what we did in December just gone, Andrea had actually quoted, it's like the ghost of the town, the case, and it needs solving. It hangs over our case, hangs over our town like a black cloud, and it does need solving. But like I said, there'll come a day where the person who's hid won't be able to hide anymore, because eventually the DNA will basically name them who it is. We won't give up, me, Andrew and Neil Keeling, we won't give up raising awareness about this case until the person is caught, whether he's dead or alive. But for all we know, he could be alive still and living the normal life.
Ryan, thanks a lot for coming on today.
You're welcome.
Really enjoyed talking to you, and it's always good to get to talk to people about unsolved crimes. And like yourself, I'm a Leigh lad. I was born and brought up in Leigh, and Lisa's case is something that has been in my mind since I was a very young lad. And like you said, it's a dark cloud over the town of Leigh, and we really, really want to see it get solved. And if we can have chats like this and have you on and help raise awareness, that's fantastic. And like I said, we just need to keep raising awareness, and hopefully one day we'll find out who the culprit is and get justice for Lisa.
Oh yeah, me and Andrea and I know Neil Keeling, like I said, it was the first ever murder case covered as a journalist, and even now, because it's been 36 years now since the murder, he still does raise awareness about the case. Like Neil does, like with me and Andrea, raise awareness about it. So yeah, we won't give up. We will not give up, because like I said, like it's sad really, because like a mum lived around that area for all them years and she never got closure for her own daughter.
Absolutely.
And especially living so close by to that estate, like 200 yards away. We won't give up. We will not give up. And eventually, like I said, there'll come a day where the person shielding him will be identified. I think so. I definitely do.
Absolutely, and that's what I hope more than anything. And I'm with you all the way, Ryan.
Thank you.
Helping raise awareness, and I think your group's fantastic. I'm going to put a link up on the YouTube video when it's up later, so if anybody's
for that.
Not a problem. If anybody's interested, they can join your group and help raise awareness for Lisa's case.
If you know know any information, that they know like they can always speak to us all the cult team or Crime Stoppers.
Absolutely. Right, okay, Ryan. Thanks a lot for coming on today. I've enjoyed talking to you.
You're welcome.
Best of luck with the group and everything, and
Thank you.
and I'll speak to you soon, okay?
All right, see you later.
See you.
Bye.
Now, I'll keep beating this drum, because I've said this a million times before. It is so important that we keep raising awareness for unsolved cases like Lisa's. Keeping it fresh in everyone's mind is a good thing. It may help with new lines of inquiry for the police if somebody comes forward with some information. We all know the police have a tough job to do, and they do periodically review old cases like Lisa's every couple of years. But they can only do so much when the trail goes cold. And I know that, you know, obviously they do have financial restraints too. So I think the next best thing we can do is to keep talking about it, keep raising awareness, and keep it out in the public domain. That is a very important thing as far as I'm concerned. And hopefully one day we'll have some closure in Lisa's case and we'll be able to get justice for her. Right, that's it for this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed our Q&A interview with Ryan. As always, please like, subscribe, and share the podcast. It's always greatly appreciated. In the next podcast, we will be covering the unsolved murder of 17-year-old Brenda Evans, which has remained unsolved now since 1977. So be sure to tune in for that one. And that's it. Thanks again to Ryan for being on the podcast today. And thanks to everyone for listening. I hope you all have a great week ahead. Be good to one another. And until next time, I'll see you soon.